Hey everybody, I'm on the line right now with a WWE wrestling legend and Hall of Famer. He'll be doing a new kind of appearance next Monday, September 14th for 80s Wrestling Con. You're going to be doing a virtual signing. Tito Santana, how are you today?
Doing very good, Billy. Thank you for having me.
So this obviously is a new venture, and I think people are familiar with your post-wrestling career. You've become a teacher and made a career out of that, but part of your career is, doing the convention circuit, getting back in front of the fans, doing that whole thing. So now that you can't do that with COVID and everything that's going on, like, how important is a virtual signing like this to you, and not only just to get back in front of the fans after this much time off?
Yeah, I mean, to my understanding, I've done a couple of virtual signings, and the fans miss, especially the legends. And with this one, they get to interact with the legends, and we get to talk to the fans, and the fans like to buy. I'm sure I have a book that's out, and people get to order the book. I have some T-shirts, and we're going to have some 8x10s, and just the fact that people are stuck in their homes, and they're not able to come and see the legends live, and this is the next best thing, and it's been very successful by everyone that's doing it.
Yeah, and that book is called Don't Call Me Chico. It's out now. I believe you can get it on Amazon, and then you have physical copies. You're going to be signing physical copies of it. If people want to tune in, it's going to be on the 80s Wrestling Facebook page. It's going to live stream. We're going to have it on WrestleZone too. And that term didn't always start as a positive, I guess. I guess depending on how you look at it, it was a term of endearment from Jesse Ventura and Bobby Heenan. They were played very big parts in your wrestling career in WWE, where they played the heel to your babyface. And how important were they to your career? Like, we saw what happened on TV, but how did you take it, like, while you were going through it?
Well, it's important, and I want to clarify something. You mentioned that they can get my book at Amazon. They can also go to PayPal, Solis Merced at yahoo.com, and order my book, and I will ship it from my home, and I will autograph the book. So that's another alternative, especially if you want the book autographed. I will send it to you autographed. As far as Jesse the Body was a big star as a professional wrestler, and then he became one of the best commentators. And he was a great heel, and he happened to, really like working with me in the ring, and he liked my career, and he, whenever somebody that popular would knock you in the ring as a babyface, he was actually helping your career. And I've mentioned this to the fans. We were traveling so much that I really wasn't watching wrestling TV shows. And I would arrive at the different arenas, and the fans were calling me, "Hey, Chico!" And for some reason, I don't know if you remember the series Chico and the Man. It was kind of it kind of would upset me, and I said, "God, why are they calling me Chico?" And then one Saturday morning, I was away somewhere and happened to have the TV on, and Jesse came on, and our show came on, and I hear Jesse calling me Chico when he's doing the commentating on my match, and I said, "Oh, so this is where the fans are getting it from." And then I had a different perspective that why the fans were calling me Chico, because I was always a fan favorite, and the fans liked Tito Santana, and they liked Jesse the Body, and Chico became pretty popular, I guess.
Yeah, I do remember the show. I know Freddie Prinze Sr. was on it, but that definitely was a sign of the times, because I don't know if that would be okay now. Like, why do you think it was okay then, where people could understand it was a character on TV? And I'm speaking about Jesse, but why do you feel like people resonated with that more back then, and now people would probably be like, oh, well, you shouldn't say that. It's, it's insensitive.
Well, let's face it. Our times have changed. Look how careful you have to be if you work with a female. You got to be very careful at what you do and what you say, and it's different times. I just think that everybody is so ready to jump at an opportunity to sue people or make some money or just start an argument. And it's a different world, and it's not a world that I really care too much for. I think people used to be able to get along better back then than we're experiencing nowadays.
I definitely agree with you. It was easier to get along, and now it seems very, trying to think of the right word, not hostile, but people need to win an argument instead of just having a conversation, I feel like, if that makes sense.
Right. Yeah, I remember being, and this is a hot topic. I remember being able to discuss politics with if you had different opinions. And now it's absolutely, you can't discuss politics. You just can't do it.
Yeah. Now, I knew about your football career before you were a wrestler, but one thing I actually found out that was really interesting was you were part of, you might have not even been there at the same time, but you were part of this group, this West Texas State group of wrestlers that, I mean, you read the list, it's crazy to think how much talent was in one place at one time. It was the Funks, Stan Hansen, Ted DiBiase, Tully Blanchard, Dusty Rhodes, Manny Fernandez. Like, I mean,
Bobby Duncombe.
Yeah, Blackjack Mulligan. Like,
Bruiser Brody.
How long did it take you guys to figure out, or did you guys know about each other when you were, in that area, since, wrestling was very territorial back then? Or did you guys put it together later on?
No. The fact that Terry Funk and Dory Funk lived right outside of Amarillo, they went to West Texas State, and the father owned the promotion there in Amarillo, and a lot of the wrestlers, a lot of the football players were becoming wrestlers. I guess because Terry Funk and Dory Funk were also football players at West Texas State, and Tully Blanchard, myself, the $1 Million Man, we were on the same team. And that's when Tully Blanchard started talking to me about becoming a professional wrestler. So it was an area, where wrestling was big already, and when you'd get out of school, if you had a degree in teaching, I think at the time I graduated in 1975. I think the basic salary in Texas was like $6,000 to be a teacher. My roommate in college, was a teacher, and he could barely afford a car and an apartment. He was struggling to feed himself. There wasn't a lot of money, so when opportunities like wrestling came around, a lot of the football players jumped on it.
A lot of people remember you for your WWE career. As I mentioned, you're a WWE Hall of Famer. You're an Intercontinental Champion. You were part of Strike Force. Is there like a match that you would point to that, is a personal favorite? I know people always call out like certain ones, whether it was a pay-per-view or an opponent, but is there one that sticks out that means something to you personally?
I was the Intercontinental Champion twice. I was a Tag Team Champion twice. I preferred single matches. I preferred the Intercontinental title. And the match that, to me, that will always stand out was the one when I had a cage match in Baltimore. We were the headliners. and I regained the Intercontinental title after chasing the Valentine for about a year and a half, which happened to be the longest feud in the history of the WWF. You know, the place was, you know, we were selling out all over the place as the headliners without Hogan on the card, and you know, I had a great following by then, and you know, when I took the title back in the cage, you know, the arena just exploded. You know, it was one of the hardest, loudest sounds I ever heard in an arena.
I know that's not as common anymore, but like, what was that like working, as you mentioned? You know, Hulk Hogan wasn't on the card, and oftentimes I've seen posters, and I can remember some events where WWE was running like 3 shows a day in different markets, and you'd have each tour loop would have a certain amount of guys. And you know, what did that mean to you, as where you were the Intercontinental Champion, you're headlining a card like that, where you know, you're drawing a house like that, where you probably wouldn't see that today. You wouldn't see that strength of talent pool.
Well, I think it came with the evolution of how professional wrestling changed. It did happen before, you know, modern wrestling with WrestleManias. We were doing it just right before WrestleMania, selling out without Hulk. We had 3, you were right, A, B, and C teams, and the C team was a bunch of nobodies with you know, a meaningless main event that wasn't expected to draw a lot. But it was a way of the WWF keeping you know, about 60, 70 wrestlers busy throughout the week. You know, we were all over the country, all over the East Coast, the north part of the East Coast, because we weren't flying anywhere yet. You know, so those were the times, and before the big WrestleManias, all of a sudden, you know, I remember Hogan. We the big shows, it was always you know, loaded with talent, and I remember Hogan would say, "Hey, I heard you guys sold out so and so place," you know, and that was one of the first times that, you know, other arenas were selling, other big arenas were selling out without Hogan being in the card. I mean, Hogan to me was the Elvis of professional wrestling. You know, I was very glad that most of my career I was in the same territories, because there used to be territories where Hogan was around, and you know, whenever he showed up, you'd see a big crowds of professional wrestling.
Do you see anybody being able to reach that level these days? Like, you say Hogan is the Elvis of wrestling, and I always point to Tom Cruise as like the last movie star. Like, there's actors that are very talented, but he's a movie star. Do you see anybody in wrestling being able to sort of transcend in that way again?
I don't think so, for the simple reason that you cannot create feuds nowadays like they did back then. You know, the fans, it was like a soap opera. You know, the fans would tune in week to week to see what was going to happen with this feud that was going on. And you had so many guys that were over big time. You know, there wasn't only 2 guys. There wasn't only 4. There was a dozen guys that were over strong. You know, and now you don't have the talent to teach the younger guys. You know, there's a couple of guys that, you know, are still old school talent. You know, I'm talking about Bob Orton's son. You know, but he doesn't have a lot of people to work with. You know, it's to keep the heat. You know, I think it's different times, and you know, it could change. I think the last ones that were really hot like that was The Rock and Stone Cold Steve Austin, where they were embedded in feuds that, you know, the people just couldn't wait to see the results.
Yeah, I definitely agree. It's going to be tough, but if somebody does it, you know, it's going to be earned. I will say that much.
Oh, yeah.
I want to jump back into your career. This is something I saw recently. Bruce Pritchard on his podcast recently said they talked about you being world champion in 1992, and it kind of goes along with what you were saying about drawing houses on your respective house show tour. And he said that they went with Bret Hart at that time instead, and it was based on the reaction he got on a European tour. So is that something that, while you're an active wrestler, you are privy to? Is that something they kind of run by you? Like, hey, we're thinking of...
No, he was in with the office and, I guess discussions and, our business is so political. So, you had different guys that wanted to push a certain guy. So they would talk him up more. I was getting, the same responses. The $1 Million Man was getting the same responses. And, somebody, like Bret Hart, and they had the Canadian market, and, everybody in the WWF was over in the European market. I think they were prepping me because they were planning to go into South America, Central America, Spain. I mean, I wrestled before the switch to Bret. I wrestled the Undertaker in Spain, and I beat him in Spain. And I think there was a time when they were starting to prep me to be the world champion. And then the WWF decided not to go into Central America and Mexico, and they went into Canada full blast, and the European market was hot. No matter where we went, all over the country, all over the world. As a matter of fact, Europe, Asia, the Middle East, wherever we went, we were, selling out everywhere. So it was, somebody inside that, had a bigger voice than whoever was voting for me.
Hearing that back now, whether you were told about it back then or not, like, that still has to be a little reassuring, or like, do you feel like good that, okay, at least I was in the conversation and they thought of me as the face of a company?
Yeah, it felt good that at one point, I think at that point when they went with Bret Hart, I don't know if you remember, it took him a long time to start drawing any crowds. I mean, he was the middle guy. The tag team champ was the most that him and Neidhart had achieved. I had been higher, on the cards in the WWF. So, I was above Bret Hart at the point, and it took Bret I mean, the houses were down for a long time. And then I don't know if you remember, when I went back as the commentator, Spanish commentator, I went back because I don't watch professional wrestling, and I saw what was going on between the Canadians and the Americans, and man, Bret Hart finally got over like $1 million. I mean, they were drawing big crowds, and the Canadians against the Americans was a hot topic, and all of a sudden, I figured out that, man, this guy is hot. And then they decide to get rid of him and put the belt on Shawn Michaels. And I could never figure that out, because, it took so long to get him over, because it's Vince who gets you over. We can say, I got over. There were so many workers that could have gotten over if they would have got the push. So Vince controls who got over and who didn't. If they start beating you, like they use me to get guys over, your value goes down. So then I could never understand where the heat was. That he got heat with somebody, and they decided, oh, we got to get rid of Bret Hart. We got to replace him with. As a matter of fact, I think it was Shawn Michaels who took over.
Yeah, I definitely think we could have a whole nother conversation about booking decisions and all that, but I want to close on a more positive note and going full circle. We already mentioned a match that had personal meaning to you, but is there a favorite moment that you have that you always like to call back to, or is there a moment that comes up most when you do get to meet fans?
I believe that my turning point is when I was in Texas. I hadn't been to New York yet, and Andre the Giant and I had become good friends. Whenever Andre was around, he would travel with me. I'd make sure that I pick him up at the airports or wherever he was at. And he brought a tape from Amarillo. I was wrestling in Amarillo, Texas for Dick Murdoch and Blackjack Mulligan. They had bought the territory from the Funks, and I didn't even know that Andre was delivering a tape, one of my matches to Vince Sr. And when I heard that they invited me to come to New York in 1979, that's my turning point, and that's when things started to change big time for me.
Tito Santana, you can see him next Monday, September 14th, for his live virtual signing. You can check it out on 80s Wrestling's Facebook page. We'll also have it on WrestleZone.com. Tito Santana, thank you very much for your time today.
Thank you so much, Billy. Arriba!